Well, blimey, that was a bit of a faux pas moment. My mouse froze up when I was trying to get the title sequence to work there. Never fun. Anyway, so this is normally kind of where I just round up the stuff I've been watching this week, and I've been watching quite a lot, actually. And I said to my good buddy, Matthew Holmes, my brother from down under, do you fancy popping on? And he said, well, I've been watching old movies mainly this week. And I was like, great, I love talking about them. So that's fine, because we can talk about anything on the wrap up, even though I do have a special section for reviewing retro films. So this week it's going to be a bit of a mix. We're gonna talk about some new things first. We're going to talk about the Oppenheimer trailer. In fact, I've got a banner especially organized for this. Let me get on that. There we go. And we're going to talk about the Dune 2 trailer, because they're two films that Matt and I are both keen to see. And then we're going to get into it about the 1984 production of The Bounty, which has got no less than 3 people I know in it, and was a bit of a flop when it came out. But Matt's a bit of a fan. I saw it once a long time ago. I just rewatched it, and I'm a big fan of the Marlon Brando version, as well as the 1936 version, which I saw once when I was ill on holiday. But here we are, teleporting in from down south. Let me guess, Matt, you've got the 1984 on Blu-ray, I'm going to guess.
Certainly do. And I'm about to get it on Blu-ray again, because it comes out in an all brand new 4K, all remastered edition from Via Vision in about, I don't know, a month's time. So I'll be buying it all over again.
Have you got a 4K player?
Not yet, but it's. I'm sure by the end of this year I will have one.
I kind of like, after, it's sort of like it was DVD, and it felt like DVD wasn't out that long before we then got Blu-ray. Although I'm probably, being completely inaccurate there. There probably was a massive gap, but it felt like it was only a few years. Now we've got 4K. I don't know, and I feel like Blu-ray really high resolutes everything. You can see the pimple.
Absolutely.
Every pimple on an actor, and then 4K is even higher resolution.
I don't
How
think
high do we need to go?
I don't think we've ever needed to go higher than 2K, but we're at 4K now, and I'll probably buy it just because I don't think I'm going to replace my enormous collection. I'm not going to replace them with 4K, but a lot of editions now are coming out with the 4K and Blu-ray, and
yeah,
so
I saw that.
I'll probably just start buying them, even though I'll probably never watch the 4K editions.
Right.
So, but I'm not replacing my collection with 4K the way I did with the DVDs. Forget about it.
No, I'm only buying Blu-rays now, but I'm not gonna upscale further.
No.
I mean, people are filming on 8K cameras now.
Yeah.
Does that mean we're going to have 8K editions as well at some point? I mean, it means we are, doesn't it?
Well, God, I hope not. I mean, that's more definition than the human eye can actually see. Like, it's insane. I mean, they've got 12K cameras now. I mean, I shot my last feature on. My last feature was shot on 8K or something. But and I think we're even discussions of shooting at 12K. But really, all that does is just allows you to, if you want to, crop in, and you can still have all this resolution. Because in the end, it's only going to get mastered on 4K.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Well,
we're getting sidetracked onto a slightly different topic here, and Corey Cochran's already contributing. No 4K here as well. No way I can upgrade. I've got 3,000 movies and 600 shows on DVDs, maybe 100 Blu-rays. Mate, I hear you. I mean,
yeah.
Look, also, you've got to ask yourself, how many times are you going to watch these films? I about 10 years ago, I started saying I'm only going to buy films that I want to watch with my kids. We could go off on a whole other segue there, but we'll leave that. Yeah, don't laugh, man.
I'm laughing with you, not at you.
Yeah, no, I know. So, okay. So let's talk about the news. There's a couple of things that everybody's tongues are wagging about, and one of those has got to be the new Oppenheimer trailer. Now, I have to admit, I'm a bit of a fan of Fat Man and Little Boy, you'd probably know it by its other title, Shadowmakers, which was with John Cusack and the guy that was in Color, Paul Newman. So it's Paul Newman, John Cusack. Was a pretty decent film about the creation of the bomb and the bombing that followed.
I haven't seen it, but yeah,
it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's not a bad movie at all. There's been quite a few miniseries that have included the making of the bomb.
Yeah,
because I think wasn't From Earth to the Moon, didn't that have a whole thing about the creation of the atomic bomb? I think that had a timeline with that.
You mean the old? No, okay, you're not talking about. That's a different film I'm thinking of. But
no,
yeah, okay.
No, not that film. I'm talking about the TV series that Tom Hanks produced, which later led on to him making the Apollo.
Right.
Came out after the Apollo 13 movie or whichever.
Got it. Yeah, no, I didn't see that. No, but okay.
And then,
yeah, I remember
there was also a Von Braun miniseries as well, which also covered the creation of rockets. And then, of course, I mean, that came after the war, but there, they still had like the initial stuff about the creation of the atomic bomb, so that was definitely covered in that. And I'm sure that
it's covered ground, isn't it? But then again, Nolan has covered ground before that has been covered, like Batman. Batman was covered well before, but he did something different with it.
And Dunkirk, in fact.
Yes, there's been plenty of Dunkirk films. So yeah, so I guess this is sort of what he does. He comes in and shakes it up.
Well, let's get the trailer up on screen here. I think we'll probably have to mute it due to being. Oh, look at those adverts. I wonder if we can get rid of those. Let's have a. Now my mouse is fucking lagging again. I'm having to sort of like do that thing where you're constantly scraping it on the mouse mat.
I think you need to what happens if you expand the trailer? Would that get rid of everything?
That I don't know. Just doing an ad blocker. There we go. I don't know. Tell me if you. I'll expand. Tell me if you can still see it all.
Oh yeah,
there
it is.
That's better. Okay. So, yeah, I mean that's an iconic tower right there. If you know anything about the story behind this, you'll know what that tower is. If you don't, then that's cool too. But now, I'm a big fan of this period.
Same.
40s trilby hats. I like the cars. I like the suits. I like the women's hair styles and things like that. And it's usually shot in certain color tones. There's certain colors that lend themselves.
Yeah, usually warm and rich.
Well, yeah, warm and rich. Like the first early color films and that kind of thing. It has all of that for me, but the key thing for me was I know this story. Why is it going to be interesting to me on this occasion? And you came up with the answer that I think was on the tip of my tongue.
And of course, Matt Damon's character, I guess, because Matt Damon's a bit like a familiar old. He's like a familiar old shoe. Like you're very comfortable, and once you see him on screen, it's like, yeah, Matt Damon. So that's sort of how I felt when I saw it. Instantly, I thought, okay, there's characters behind this.
Yeah, Matt Damon, he's only got a couple of lines in the trailer, but immediately you think, oh, this could be a performance where he's going to get a few nominations.
Yeah. He seems to be playing somewhat of his, an echo of his character in Ford versus Ferrari. He's kind of the guy that, gets the genius who can build the fast car. Now he's the guy back in the genius who can build the bomb. And now he's got to go out and get all the people to make it happen. It sounded a bit like his, I forget that character's name in Ford versus Ferrari. But
no, I know who you mean. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a bit like the aggressive football recruiter in this, going out to get the best players for the team.
Yeah, and he's got the charm and charisma to do it. And so, yeah. But I don't know, it got. And when I heard what this film was about initially, and I saw the first posters, and I heard the synopsis, I thought it sounds just like a yawn fest.
Yeah, no, I thought it sounded like something that was being made for the award season, and because I thought it was going to be out in time for the Oscars. Actually, I didn't realize it was going to drop after. Yeah,
But
it did.
seeing the trailer, it's like, well, actually looks really engaging because the cast is good, and I really love. I mean, I showed it to Nadia, and she really is only engages with dramatic movies with really good characters and so on. She's not really into history as such, but she watched it and was like, "Wow, that I'm definitely going to go see that."
Shit with Nolan.
Yeah, well, as he does with the lead. With Cillian Murphy, Cillian Murphy, of course, has been in all the Batman films as the Scarecrow.
That's right. Yeah,
He was also in Inception. He was actually the person's mind that they were hacking in Inception.
Good
And
God,
a bit of
I didn't recognize that was Robert Downey Jr.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, really old looking Robert Downey Jr.
Good God, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're going to say a bit of trivia.
Oh yeah, a bit of trivia. Cillian Murphy actually auditioned for Bruce Wayne in the first Batman Begins, and I've seen his audition tape. And while he obviously didn't get the role of Bruce Wayne, Nolan was impressed with him enough that they offered him Scarecrow.
Right.
And like the good guy he is, he took the role of Scarecrow even though he didn't get the lead. And look what has happened. That blossomed into a big career.
Yeah, and a big working relationship with Nolan.
Yeah.
I mean, it strikes me like Nolan's quite sort of like a loyal, collaborative director.
Absolutely, he is. And of course, he's worked with Matt Damon before on Interstellar.
That's right, yeah.
So I think when he finds his favorites, he sticks with them, you know?
Is this his first time working with Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes, from my recollection, it is. Yep.
And it's his first time working with Emily Blunt, I think.
Yes. First time with Emily Blunt, I think. Yeah, and Florence Pugh as well. But I mean, she's pretty new to the scene, so of course.
Yeah.
She's sort of the it girl at the moment, isn't she, Florence Pugh? Like
she is a bit, yeah. She's popping up all over the place. She's clearly had a run of castings. Now she's popping up left and right.
Yeah, she seems to be the it girl that's getting cast in everything right now. Every award film, it's just Florence Pugh. So
that would be a shopping trolley on yours and my sets, wouldn't it? With a camera in it.
That shopping trolley, yes, absolutely it would. A shopping. Well, if we're lucky, we'd get a shopping trolley.
That looks like. I mean, am I right in thinking this was shot on film?
Nolan only shoots on film, and I think he's shot the whole thing in, or at least sections of it in the IMAX, in the large 70mm IMAX format. Which is why the aspect ratio of the film is presented more in what looks like a 1:8:5 ratio. I still prefer films to be in the CinemaScope 2:3:5 aspect ratio, but I know a lot of filmmakers are leaning towards this ratio now, but it's probably because cinema viewership is going down. So things aren't being made for the big wide cinema screen. Things are being made for people's home TVs, which are 16:9. So,
well, Canoli Sasquatch, who was kind enough to have me on his channel the other night when we did a really late True Lies stream.
Oh yeah,
wonderful panel, really nice people. I was so knackered by the end of the stream. I thought the girl actually had a dead cat on her bed, and it was actually just the way her cushions were arranged. But it looked like she had this like dead animal on her bed, and I said, "Has your cat died behind you?" That's all live on their channel. You can watch that. That's fun. We had a really good time talking about True Lies. Yeah, Matt and I are both giving the trailer a thumbs up.
Absolutely, big thumbs up.
So this is definitely a film I want to see in the cinema. This is definitely a film I would like to see in IMAX because I'd love to see a 70mm screening of it.
Absolutely.
And it's a surprise. I have to admit, I was not chomping at the bit to see the film. I saw an early teaser trailer of it, and I thought, yeah, okay, you can make it all about how powerful nuclear explosions are, but that's a bit old hat, even with some really cool camera stuff and what have you. But it's now this trailer's brought the characters to the forefront of the narrative, which is good. I hear it's over 3 hours long. Okay, well, no dashing for a beer before the movie then.
Yeah.
Especially not if you're going to see it in IMAX, because it's pretty difficult to get out for a wee in that place.
I will say though, on the trailer thing of Oppenheimer, both you and I were very skeptical about this movie. We were unimpressed, not unimpressed, that's unfair, but we were underwhelmed by Nolan's last two films, and we heard about Oppenheimer and we're like, that doesn't sound too interesting. And we watched and we came to it with skepticism. But in one trailer, we're both going, that's it, we're going to see that at the movies.
Mm.
And I think this is a very good case for... There's a lot of cynicism going around right now with movies and trailers. And I think there's this sense that people think that there's a lot of people out there who are just trolling movies, who just hate things to hate on them, and that we just love to hate things rather than just enjoy things. And you actually showed that you are putting quality work up. We will drop previous...
I think it's a prejudice to want the quality of film production to be good.
Oh, of course not. Because we love good movies, and we want, and of course these people are being paid to make them, and we're paying to see them. So we expect it to be good. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's funny because you'll know I've got this novel coming out, and forgive me for mentioning it, but I will plug it every chance I get, which is set in 1988. And I was reading one of my diary entries, because it's all based on my diary from 1988, and it said, I rented out The Untouchables today. Nick copied it for me, so hooray, I've got my own copy. And I thought, oh, there's me admitting to piracy in my diary. Shall I cut it out? And I thought, actually, I'm not going to cut it out, because I went to see The Untouchables, Empire Screen 1 on the opening night, 17mm, Empire Leicester Square, and I went back there to see it in that same screen again, then on a date to see it when it had transferred to the smaller screen. That was 3 times. Then I rented it in the diary alone, once in America, 3 times in the UK, 4 times total. And then I also bought the VHS. Then I also bought the DVD. Then I also bought the Blu-ray. I'm not going to get the 4K, but that's how much I love that film, and I just wanted to have access to that film. It wasn't going to stop me from... So I'm not saying piracy is correct, and I was a young kid at the time. By the way, I've literally just had... It's not too late, Phil. It's not too late, Phil, because we haven't got on to talking about The Bounty yet. So Phil Davis, who was in The Bounty, has just sent me a text with a big, long story, which I'm going to read out in a minute. Nice, yeah. So this is wicked, Phil. Thank you. I'm actually live right now. Thank you so much. So, and he's got something about Tony Hopkins. Tony Hopkins, not Anthony Hopkins.
Nice.
So we'll get in. We'll get into that.
Look, mate, I don't think you need to feel guilty if you once downloaded that film, because you have given your fair share of box office return and residuals to that movie with all of those rentals and visits to the cinema.
I worked out I've probably spent probably close to half my life's income on either cinema tickets, films, DVDs, movie soundtracks on CD, vinyl soundtracks, film posters, memorabilia, figurines, etc., board games that tie into certain films, toys, and all of that stuff. And then, just a monumental number of VHSs. I had like nearly 2,000 VHS retail.
Yeah, same here. There's not much I also spend my money on, either buying films or making films. That's it. And so, yeah.
Some people would say we were insane for doing that, Matt, wouldn't they?
I would say we're insane for doing that. But what are we going to do about it?
Make more films.
In fact, I remember I spoke to Rolf De Heer once when he was helping me with editing my first feature. And Rolf De Heer is the director of Bad Boy Bubby, The Tracker, 10 Canoes, and very famous Australian director.
I've seen Bad Boy Bubby.
Yeah, and he's a bit of a sort of a cinematic legend here in Australia. And I was sitting with him one night, having dinner around his place, and here I am, in my 20s, and very keen. And I'm like, so how do you become a director, a film director, and like as a professional and get paid for it? And he sort of sat back in his chair and he thought about it a bit, and he goes, "You have to have a little bit of insanity." And I went, okay. And I went, okay, that's interesting. And then fast forward 15 years, and I email him like a month ago. Hi, Rolf, I hear your new film's coming out. Can't wait. I'm having a hard time on my new film. And I remember what you said that night about having to be a little bit insane to be a filmmaker. And he wrote back and said something to the effect of, I think by now you can understand that you have to be completely insane to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is an insanity to it.
Yes, I can see that any of my friends who watch this stream will be going, yeah, we know Lance so well. Well,
let's get on to, should we get on to Dune?
Let's get on to Dune, because we want to get on to,
how do you say it? Is it Dune?
Well, some people say that some people say it's Dune.
Well, I say Dune.
So
and then every time I say it, my Nadia's like, "What Dune? What?"
Technically, it's pronounced. So technically, it would be pronounced with 2 O's on that basis. Keith E popping in, always a regular. Good to see you, mate.
Hey, Keith, again. Nice to see you again.
Do share the love with the stream.
Dune.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to see that. This is not a big trailer in terms of you don't get loads of shots. It's quite a concise.
It's almost looks like nothing changed. They just kept filming in the same style in the same place.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that they didn't shoot a massive portion of it in one go. I think they basically did a main unit shoot, and then they did lots of pickups. Because it feels to me like the actors haven't aged. It was so nice meeting Dennis at the premiere. I didn't think I'd get to speak to him, and I was with my friend Sharon,
That's
who played.
Right. You got to meet him, yeah.
I did. My friend Sharon, who played Dr. Kynes. Me and her were actually saying goodbye to each other because we hadn't got to talk to each other much, because it was her night and she was whizzing around. She had about 20 mates there, and suddenly this little man sort of comes up between us and says, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take this lady away from you," and in a French accent, of course. And she turns around and says, "Oh, Dennis, this is Lance. He's a massive fan of Dune, and he really likes the David Lynch version." And oh yeah, so do I. And we started talking about that, and I told him it's so weird. I saw this version of it that no one else had seen because the cinema got sent the wrong edit, and I did a blog about that. And me and him ended up talking about the sound design, and that was the one thing about the movie. It wasn't that I didn't like it; it worked for his vision, and I got it completely. I'm just a bit of a traditionalist with my music scores, and the only thing I can that sarcasm for anyone who didn't pick up on it.
I was going to say, Lance, don't make me hang up.
Did you bang your head in rehearsals? Yeah, no, I'm not. I
will never watch that Indiana Jones film. I will never see it.
Oh my God, hang on. Have we gone on to a Men in Black type trailer? What's happening? Oh my God, is this a new Men in Black movie?
No, it's the old one.
I don't think I saw this one.
I didn't. No one saw this one, mate.
Okay, no. Okay, we need to stop sharing right now. Let's turn that off.
Yeah, no one needs that film doesn't exist. Just ignore it.
Oh, Men in Black International. That's the third one. Is that?
It was supposed to launch a whole new franchise. It's Hollywood's idea of put that guy from that successful franchise in this girl from this successful franchise and get this franchise and put them in it. I'm sure it'll be a hit.
Yeah. Guess what? Perhaps not.
No, that cookie cutter recipe accountant view of filmmaking doesn't actually yield good results.
You probably could have used the same script with unknown actors, cut your budget down by about 40% because of the unknown actors, and then you might have broke even.
That's right. And maybe even given the film to a director who was hungry, eager to prove themselves, and was passionate about getting their break, and maybe it might have been another 10-15% better than some tired old person who was doing it for a big paycheck.
I didn't know it was your secret desire to direct Men in Black 3, Matt, but I learned I learned something new about our ever-evolving friendship every day.
Actually, I can hand on heart say that if someone came to me and said, "We want you to reboot Men in Black, and here's a lot of money," I would say, "Thank you, but no thank you."
Funnily
All
enough,
right,
we're going to move on to the Bounty, but
Bounty.
but I did write a pitch for Men in Black 2 before the second one came out.
Oh
And
yeah,
it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Did it hit anywhere near what the second one turned out
My
to be?
one was because we know that Tommy Lee Jones retires at the end of the first one, right?
Yeah.
So it started off with him in a completely the opening scene was him in like sort of white picket fence life, and his family gets attacked by these aliens, and everyone gets massacred except for him, and then the guy turns up to save him, and that's like the pre-credit sequence.
Okay, yep.
And it was like, you've got to come back because this guy's after you, and
right.
it was kind of like a revenge. It was an alien revenge story of this alien coming back to kill him over a wrong that he'd done.
Okay, yep.
So we're moving on to the Bounty. So I said to Matt, I'm going to talk about some of the stuff I've watched recently. Don't know what this trailer is showing at the moment.
It's playing something else now. I think you better go. I think you have to go back.
Let me refresh. And basically, I said I'm going to talk about stuff I've seen, and he said, "Well, I've seen some old films lately. What have you seen?" He said, "I just watched The Bounty." And it's funny because when this came out, which was 1984, I started going to the cinema almost every week from the week after Return of the Jedi came out. So that came out in 1983.
Yeah, 1983. Yep.
And I went. I went a few times before that, but like it became a week. It was like after Jedi, which I went to see like about 5 times. It was like, what's on next week that I can go and see to the cinema because I'm old enough to take myself now. And so the next year I did Terminator, I did Dune, I did Ghostbusters, I did Gremlins, and one of the films that came out somewhere in the weeks between all of those was this one. And I think another movie that came out around the same time that also got slated, that was a kind of historical biopic, was the Richard Gere David and Goliath movie.
Oh yeah, King David. I've got that. Yeah.
That's not as bad as people said either.
It's actually not bad at all. I rewatched it. I bought it on Blu-ray like last year and rewatched it, and it's really quite watchable. It's not bad.
It's got a pretty epic battle at the end as well, and and it was weird.
It's actually a really cool film. Like, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it got. I mean, we could do a separate stream about that because there's been a lot of versions of that movie made.
And interesting, that was directed by an Australian, the David film, Bruce Beresford.
Good God, Bruce Beresford directed that?
It was directed by Bruce Beresford. And what's interesting about The Bounty is this was directed by Roger Donaldson, who is a New Zealander.
Well, before we get on to talking about The Bounty, let's mention briefly, there are 2 other versions of this movie. There was one made in 1936, which I have seen. I saw that very long time ago when it was shown on, I think, BBC 2.
Is that called Mutiny on the Bounty?
I
think the earlier versions are called Mutiny on the Bounty, aren't they?
The Mutiny on the Bounty with Marlon Brando and Trevor Howard and Richard Harris is my personal favorite. Very heavily fictionalized. It's the second American film to be based on the novel, the first being Mutiny on the Bounty that was made in 1935. So you're correct.
Well, there was a 1933 film starring Errol Flynn, which is called In the Wake of the Bounty.
Really?
Then there was the Mutiny on the Bounty in 1935 with Charles Lawton and Clark Gable.
Clark Gable, yeah. And Charles Lawton is absolutely awesome as Blythe in that film, by the way.
Right.
So good.
And then there's the 1962 starring Marlon Brando, which is again Mutiny on the Bounty.
Right.
So really, The Bounty, the one we're talking about today, is the last and the final of all the Bounty films.
Yeah.
There hasn't been another one since.
No. And the one with Marlon Brando also has a very young Richard Harris in it.
And who does Richard Harris play?
I think Richard Harris plays the role that my friend Phil Davis played in the
in the 84.
No, he plays Seaman John Mills, and Phil Davis plays Young. I mean, I don't know that the characters were all the same because I don't think we've got Richard Graham played John Mills. Okay.
Yeah, Mills wasn't a big character in the 84 film, but he was always there in the background.
Yeah, I mean,
he's sort of a bit of a tough guy.
Yeah. I want to talk about Richard Graham, who played him. But let me just for a second let's just have a quick look at the 62 version because there's a couple of things I want to say about it. I mean, if you haven't seen Mutiny on the Bounty, any of the films, I mean, look, my personal favorite is this one. The Charles Lawton one, I think you can find on YouTube and is definitely worth watching.
I have never seen the Mutiny on the Bounty, the 62 version, but I would like to, especially now I've got such a love and respect for the 84 version. I'm very curious to see this one. All I know is that it's not as historically aligned, not as historically accurate as the 84 version.
No, but I think it's more cinematic and it's more dramatic.
Okay.
I'll go into why in a minute, but
it looks great.
It does look good. Now, Marlon Brando very famously chased after his female lead, Tarita, so unlike him. And so get this, Matt, right? This is what I wanted to show you. He actually bought an island in the region. He bought an island. I shit you not. He bought an island in the region, and I found it. And he named it after her because he kind of pursued her, but wasn't like getting anywhere. So I don't know whether the island was the deal breaker for her, but this is it. This is the island.
Oh wow!
And if you look here,
the Brando.
Yeah, this is Brand. This is Brand. He built all this, by the way. This is Brandau's like personal villa, Bob Brandau's bar.
Now, this is the island of Dr. Moreau.
Well, it's not really, but this is where he lived for a while. I think his ex-wife probably because he built a lot of it for her even after they divorced. And it's actually got it's got a staff village where the staff
got
live.
its own airport.
It's got its own airport.
He's turned a quarter of the island into an airport.
Yeah, and look at all the this is the power plant that powers everything. See all the sun things?
Oh, they're all solar panels, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you could live on this island and you'd never have to leave. You know.
That's crazy. Where is it in relation to
well, let's have a look.
Everything else in the world.
If you look at this is because he bought this atoll. So imagine having enough money to buy your own atoll, hey? Better check it's not due to blow up anytime soon.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's in the French Polynesian Islands.
Right. Okay.
And it's pretty isolated. So, I mean, you'd think that for a movie star to get away from people, the French Polynesian Islands would be enough. But no. He had to buy an atoll quite a way out. So he got Bora Bora there.
Wow.
Is that Tahiti or is that a different name for Tahiti?
No, that's not Tahiti, no.
So where's Tahiti in relation to
I don't know. You'd have to come out a lot further than that.
Oh, is it part of the Cook Islands? Because John Cook is mentioned in the movie. We'll talk
James
about
Cook. Yeah.
Yeah. There's the Pitcairn Island.
Oh, there's a Pitcairn. That's where they ended up, wasn't it?
That's where they ended up. Yeah. There's a lot about the story that I wasn't too au fait with. It's interesting they ended up here and there was a colony here. I mean, that island is blank. There's nothing there.
They're the descendants of Fletcher Christian and the mutineers and their Tahitian wives. Their descendants still live on the Pitcairn Islands.
It must be this one. It must be. This is the one. Look, this is the one. Christian's Cave. Oh, mate, look at this.
And there's 62 people live on that island, and many of them are descendants of the mutineers of the Bounty. And they have their language is a mix of English and Tahitian, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and of course, Seventh-day Adventists, they're all apparently very big Seventh-day Adventists that live there, and you don't have to pay taxes if you live there.
Oh, mate. Well, there's a pizza place, so I'm in.
Yeah. So,
Adamstown. Yeah.
yeah, because John Adams was the only man who ended up staying. Like like 20 years later, when they came to the island, John Adams was the only man still alive. All the rest of the mutineers were gone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they'd all most of them had passed away by then, I think.
They had, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't know how they passed away. It was shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
But I figured you put a bunch of guys on an island with a bunch of women, those guys are going to fight a lot.
Yeah.
They're going to fight. They're going to fight to be the alpha male.
Well, they make TV shows about that, don't they? So, so I mean, that's the Pitcairn Islands. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it, when you see it? It's like right in the middle of nowhere. There's New Zealand. Yeah, you can see Matt's house over here somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Fiji, Tonga. So Tahiti is in which group? Do we know? It was French Polynesian, isn't it?
It's a good question. I believe it is. Yeah, I think it is French Polynesian because I think people that live in Tahiti now are French citizens.
So look. Oh, boom! It's the main
There it is.
island. Okay, so it's the main island of the French Polynesian group. All right.
Yep. So yeah,
that's somewhere I could live for sure.
But I think, yeah, I'm absolutely going to get around to seeing the Mutiny on the Bounty. But like you, I wasn't too familiar with the Bounty growing up. I mean, you saw it in the cinema. I saw it on VHS, but I was underwhelmed when I first saw it. I was like, oh, okay, that's a story, I guess. You know, it didn't really...
you're wrong. I was sorry. So the point I was making earlier was I didn't see it at the cinema.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
It got such terrible reviews.
Right.
We're talking about the 84 version now.
Yeah.
That it was like I was going every week, and that one came out, and I thought, yeah, I don't know. It kind of got slagged off, and it looked like a sort of movie that I would enjoy, but it got so badly pummeled that, and when all the critics are laying into something, and everybody says it's got a terrible review. I asked my dad if he wanted to see it. I don't think he wanted to see it. You know, no one wanted to go, so I guess I sort of gave in to the mass media. So I like you, I saw it on video, I think in about 86.
Yeah, and I think I didn't see it until the late 90s when I finally watched it. And being a Mel Gibson fan at the time, I was catching up on his old catalog, and I was I didn't think it was a bad film. I just thought it was a bit of a not very memorable film. Like it was sort of okay, whatever. But revisiting it, and then of course seeing it in beautiful widescreen on Blu-ray and everything, the more I watch it, the more I see in it, the more I discover in it, and the more I enjoy it. It's one of those films that grew, and now it's next to Master and Commander. It's my next favorite seafaring adventure film.
Well, and you probably know it's got the same ship in it as Master and Commander. Which,
really?
Yeah. I wondered whether you knew that. We'll talk about that in a sec. I'm just going to dash to the loo real quick. So I'm going to ask you to elaborate further on what you like about it, and I'll be right back. And
yeah, no worries.
All right.
Well, for those of you who haven't seen The Bounty, what would I recommend about it? Well, look, I think one of the most evocative and beautiful things about it is that it does have a score by the famous and now deceased Vangelis, or Vangelis, however you say it. And he was doing huge scores in the 80s. Of course, Blade Runner he had done 2 years before. And this, I think The Bounty ranks as definitely one of his best film scores. It's extremely moody. It's very evocative. It's still got the electronica and everything, but somehow it still really works with this Napoleonic era world. So, yeah, I would definitely. I think if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's absolutely worth a couple of hours of your time. It does feel a little dated, being from the 80s, but I think if you're a patient viewer, if you're an observant viewer, and you love history and you like films that just deal really with characters and emotions, I think it's a great journey. And there's a lot of psychological stuff going on in it as well. And I think it's not so obvious. It's not about big sea battles and sword fights and cannon fire and everything. And maybe that's why maybe that's sort of what they were expecting going in. Maybe something a bit more like Master and Commander. But when you realize this is just a battle of wills, this is a battle of two people, two mindsets, two ideas of thinking, and how they clash, and how, you know, two people who were once close friends can become just bitter enemies. It's a great. That's what's so good about it. So I would definitely highly recommend that.
Good timing. I'm back.
You're back.
Teach me to drink a wine during a live stream. I mean, yeah, it's definitely Vangelis, not Vangelis.
So you say Vangelis or Jealous?
No, I say Vangelis, I think.
Vangelis, yeah. I've never really known which one it is.
No, Vangelis.
Vangelis. So
I think Vangelis.
I've heard Vangelis mentioned in that film with Jack Black when he plays a composer. He mentions it and he says Vangelis. So I've thought, oh, is it Vangelis? Not Vangelis.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I mean, okay, so the whole thing that makes the story compelling and interesting is the dichotomy of Lieutenant Christiansen and the stubbornness of Captain Blythe, who to some degree willingly puts his crewmen in danger.
Yeah.
And then also it's a recipe for disaster, because let's face it, if you go on a really long voyage and you go to a place that's really pretty, full of gorgeous women, and you're a single bloke whose main job has been shoveling rat shit in the bowels of a ship, and then somebody tells you you've got to go back on a journey that might kill you, you know, you might want to hang out and not go back. So
yeah, and the life for those sailors was awful. England was an awful place to live, and a lot of them were pressed into service anyway. They weren't even on their own will.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of the crews were press gang.
You know, go to this warm, beautiful beaches with naked women walking around with all the Victorian era repression of sexuality was upon them, and then they come to here where it's all just boom. It's like hippie town. Like everyone's just it's a free for all. There's food growing everywhere. You don't have to work for it.
Yeah.
Why would you want to leave?
Indeed. Vin Weasel, definitely the most entertaining name on tonight. I watched The Bounty a long time ago, and as I recall, it didn't make much of an impression, but maybe it's a film I might have aged into. I mean, okay, Matt, what would you give it out of 10 on IMDb?
I would actually give it an 8 out of 10. I see it sitting at a 7, but I would actually give it an 8 when I probably would have earlier given it a 6.
Well, I would have given it a 6 earlier, and I rewatched it again today, and I still give it a 6.
Okay. I would have given it a 6 when I first watched it, definitely. But the more I watch it, the more I like it. And I think that's because I've changed as a viewer, and I'm revisiting a lot of films that I didn't like when I was in my 20s, and now I'm in my 40s. I'd rediscover them, and I'm like, oh, I really like this.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you on that, because there's a lot of films I'm watching now that I didn't like then, or that I didn't like as much then. And I thought this was going to be one of them for me. There's 2 reasons why I don't like it as much as the other films, and also why the rating for me hasn't gone up. One of those is I found the scene where they take the ship, one of the most undramatic sequences committed to celluloid. It may well be a very accurate version for me, but it just wasn't. You know,
when they come in and wake everybody up, and
for me, that should have been underscored with a bit of dramatic music. The cutting and the way that it was shot should have been a bit more frenetic. I know it was probably quite accurate, in terms of how it was done and what took place. But I think that there would have been a more exciting way of filming that, particularly with modern cameras and cameras being lighter, where you could have had the men, you could have followed them around, going up the stairs and into cabins and through doors and things. It just could have all been a bit more frenetic. It was filmed in a very traditional Saturday matinee style that was a bit naff, and I was totally underwhelmed by that sequence. And I recalled that sequence was more exciting, and then I realized I was remembering the one from the previous movie.
Right.
So
maybe that's a big difference. You've got something to compare it to. I don't. I've never seen another bounty film. So for me, that's the bounty story, and I go, I like that.
That I think that's fair, because I definitely am doing that.
Yeah, I don't have the weight of comparison. It's sort of I mean, maybe my view on the bounty will change. Maybe if I watch those, I don't know. Maybe I will like the other one less because I like this one already. You know what I mean?
You might have been spoilt by this one. I mean, the interesting thing about the historical accuracy in this is, and from what I've read, is I can tell it's the most accurate version, because Christian in this is not portrayed as a brilliant officer. In fact, I think he's actually portrayed as quite a poor officer who succumbs to madness, and therefore his judgments are affected, and ultimately he ends up becoming quite a weak and useless sailor. And in terms of what happened with him, from what I've read, that's pretty accurate. And there's also rumors to the effect of he may have been killed by his own men. He may have been killed by the Tahitians. He may have been killed by his own wife. We don't really know.
Yeah, but he's not a heroic character, and he's not. No. But I think maybe that's another reason why the bounty didn't click with audiences in the 80s, is because these characters are so grey.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins is not an evil man, but neither is Christian an evil man. You both get their points of view, but they're clashing, and they're so flawed, both of them. So you're kind of going, who do I vote? Who am I with? It's not very black and white, and I think that's why I like it, because it is so. It is so grey.
The film definitely wins on that score, and in that context, the kind of flashback from the courtroom scene, which has, of course, I wonder if we can get some pictures up. Let's see what we've got here. You've got the courtroom scene with Laurence Olivier, of all people, and then you've got who else have you got in there? There's Edward Fox in there, right?
Yep, Edward Fox. Yep. A little bit of trivia about this version of the bounty.
Yeah, go on.
Whoever wrote it, Robert Bolt, I think.
Three. I think they had 3 writers on it. In all, if I remember.
Well, the original, the guy who actually wrote the first version for this script, which this film became, he wrote it for David Lean, and David Lean was going to direct it. But
that's right. Yeah,
he either passed up on it or he passed away, and it went to a relatively unknown director, Roger Donaldson. Who, of course, Roger Donaldson went on to do Dante's Peak and
he did No Way Out with Kevin Costner, which is a superb film.
He's done lots of he's actually a really solid director. But yeah, interesting. This was actually being developed as a David Lean film, and their goal was to make an extremely accurate version. And I think for me, that's why I like The Bounty, because it's very morally grey. The characters are very flawed. And I think the world it created felt very real. Like, you feel like you are watching these people go to the Tahiti Islands in that era and do what they do. And it's very hard to see through, like, the artifice of it. It feels very real. And I think that's why I like it.
I agree with you on that. I mean, the second reason why I preferred the original is because Trevor Howard, for me, as Blythe, is he just storms it over Hopkins, but the the lines between them are a bit more clearly drawn, and that might not be as realistic, but from a dramatic point of view, with some of the scenes where they face off against each other, you could cut the tension with a knife.
Right.
In this particular shot, by the way, you've got my friend Phil Davis.
There he
At the
is.
back, yeah, at the back here. You've got my friend Dexter Fletcher here. I don't know Liam Neeson, although I did make him a big card once. Now, Tavite Veneta, who played Gibson's love interest, I bet that was horrible for her.
Hard job for both of them. Very difficult job.
Very hard job for both of them. This is the only movie she ever did.
Yeah, that's right. I looked her up after the thing. Said, what else has she done? But no, this was her first and only role, and she was also a Tahitian woman.
I looked her up. Definitely wasn't thinking how old is she and is she single. But yeah, she's married with kids and you know, probably bought a house with the money, I would imagine. But you've got there's a whole raft of other actors in this.
Oh yeah, this is a cast that today you couldn't put together.
You couldn't afford. So look here, we got Bernard Hill from The Two Towers, King Theoden.
Yep, you've got Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis is in the movie. There's got to be a still of him. Let's see.
Oh yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is Blythe's next officer. It's quite a big role. But yeah, you got Daniel Day-Lewis, you got Bernard Hill, you got Liam Neeson, Anthony Hopkins, Mel Gibson.
Yeah,
crikey, you couldn't put this cast together today without it costing you more than a Disney movie.
You sure couldn't. I mean, one of the interesting things about it as well is that. Not Daniel Day-Lewis. Some of the other cast are also pretty big actors or have gone on to other big roles.
You recognize them. You see him, you go, yeah, I know that guy. I've seen him in other things.
So that is John Sessions, who is one of Kenneth Branagh's biggest collaborators. He's also a stand-up comic, and he's done loads of things with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Absolutely massive actor. Has a tiny role in this. And this is the same boat that was in Master and Commander.
Wow.
So it went under a massive refit for Master and Commander.
Wow.
Become the HMS Surprise.
Because they built that for the movie. They built that ship for the movie. And so they obviously repurposed it for Master and Commander.
This actor died quite young at 67 in 2006, the King.
That's a shame.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. Sorry to interrupt. My favourite scene in the movie, I wanted to tell you this, and I forgot to write it down. My favourite scene in the movie is when the daughter leaves with Christian and the father is broken.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a powerful scene?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I think it's one of many excellent scenes in the film.
Now, on your Blu-ray, did it have subtitles for when the father and daughter were talking to each other? Because on my version, there are none.
Oh, yeah, it did. Absolutely.
So what do they say to each other? Because I don't know.
Oh, strike, now you're pushing my memory.
We'll let Matt get that up on screen while we further discuss. This is an interesting scene where he's getting his tattoo done, and then at one point you realise it's kind of on either side of his butt cheeks, which is...
Yeah. Well, actually, the reason he's getting tattooed is because if you wanted to marry a Tahitian woman, as he did, you have to get those tattoos. Like the Tahitian people, you must get them, and so that's why they all tattooed themselves, was because they wanted to marry these women, and that was part of the. I guess, you know, to be part of that society and to have a wife, you needed to have tattoos.
So well, I wanted to ask my friend Phil Davis, who was on the channel. He's done an interview, but we didn't hit him up about the bounty in particular when he came on, which was very early in his career. There's Daniel Day-Lewis there,
very young Daniel, pre the what do you call it? Last of the Mohicans, Daniel Day-Lewis.
So yeah, and yeah, very much so. This is 6 years before he did Mohicans. Was 92, shot in 91, I think. So this is from Phil Davis, who we had up on camera earlier. Hi, Lance, just got your message. Probably too late to help. Au contraire, Mr. Davis. That's very timely. Thank you. It was a bit of a dream job. 3 weeks in London at Wembley Studios, 10 weeks in Tahiti on the island of Moray, the sort of place that the very rich have their holidays. Then 3 weeks in New Zealand, a tremendous adventure. The shoot was sometimes grueling out on the ship. Once you were aboard, you were there all day, whether or not your scenes were finished, and not everyone had their sea legs. Much puking over the side for the first few weeks, but I loved it. Playing someone posh for the first time, elocution lessons courtesy of the late, great Joan Washington, who is the late wife of Richard E. Grant.
Wow.
Yeah. Give big props, shout out to her. Visited LA on my way home as guest of Tony Hopkins and was able to put a deposit on my first flat as a result of the film. Made some great friends for life. It's a great film. Not sure a good one, certainly. The original plan was for 2 movies. I read that as well. One where it gets up to the one is the journey home and the court case, and the original was the mutiny. That was the plan. That would have been interesting.
I don't know if you could drag it out over 2, but there you go.
The second scene where the mutineers, or the second movie where mutineers ended up and it all fell apart on Pitcairn Island, but it was dropped. Many stories, but it's too late to share them all. Love Phil. Well, that's so kind of him, though.
Wow. Because Phil, his character was very much Mel Gibson's compadre, his second in command in the mutiny itself.
Yeah.
I was watching the movie, and I was seeing that character, and I was going, damn it, I know that actor. Why do I know that actor? He's a young version of someone that looks very familiar. And as soon as the credits rolled and it said his name, I was like, Lance's mate. That's Lance's mate.
Yeah, and then we've also got a photo that I can share that Steve Fletcher, brother of Dexter and Graham, the late Graham Fletcher Cook.
Dexter Fletcher being the very young, almost like a cabin boy kind of character in
yeah. He's
who is now a big Hollywood director, directing movies like Bohemian Rhapsody,
and a producer,
and also the Elton John biopic he directed as well.
So this is a picture he sent me of Steve and his brother Dexter on set during filming. And he said he was killed off pretty early, but he was out there for the same amount of time as Dexter, I guess, because it was probably just as easy to ship him out and keep him out there than it was.
And he probably needed someone to look at, like a brother, look after him. I mean, he was only very young.
Yeah, that's true. Steve would have been slightly older, so maybe he also doubled as his on set.
Yeah, like his
on set nanny or what his minder. That may well have been the case. That may well have been. And there's Dexter there. So. He said they had a great time. And I said, right, I can imagine. He said, well, 3 months in Tahiti, it was awful. I bet.
You know what else I think really helped change my mind about the perception of the film is that when I watched the Blu-ray, before I watched it again, I watched the making of.
Right. Is that on the Blu-ray? Have you got the Bluray there? Do you want to show that?
Yeah. Let me just grab it.
And I bet it's got loads of cool features. And there we get a display of Matt's fashion choices.
All right. So this is the Blu-ray version that I've got, which is the same one that's available now.
That does look rather spunky, it has to be said. It's very blue Blu-ray, isn't it? Very blue.
And it's got lots of great special features.
Do you want to read out the special features on that? They're a bit weeny for me to see there.
Yeah, they've got audio commentary by the director, the producer, and production designer. Audio commentary by historical consultant Stephen Walters. An original making of Bounty documentary. And the Bounty on film, a gallery of stills and trailers detailing the previous film adaptations of Mutiny on the Bounty, narrated by Stephen Walters. And I watched the original making of Bounty, which is an 80s documentary, but it's a bit dated in its production. But seeing behind the scenes, the amount of passion and work that went into the film, and also what the filmmakers were striving to do, it's like it peels away your own perceptions, and now you're looking at it from what they were intending, and then you see the film in a different light.
Yeah, that's always nice when that that happens. And look, I mean, when I watched it today, I could really appreciate. There were a lot of things I really liked about it that I did appreciate more, that I was able to look at because I wasn't a director back then. And so, for example, the production design in this shot alone, plus the fact you've even got, can you see, is that mist or is that snow on those mountains behind?
I don't know. It looks a bit like, it couldn't be snow. I reckon that's some sort of weird light reflection.
I don't think it's a weird light reflection.
But yeah. But I mean, it's a gorgeous film. Like,
yeah,
it's a stunning, like, just, I think what I like about The Bounty is the immersion into the world. Like, you do really feel like you're not watching a theatrical version of the film. You're watching, you're seeing that world as it would have been in that time. And
except for this rubber dinghy non-period raft that appears to have crept into this shot. You see that?
Yeah, this is obviously it's obviously that's the safety boat.
Yeah, it probably is the safety boat with no one in it. But...
Yeah, I mean, it didn't show up in the movie, but yeah, it was.
No, I mean, like this whole scene where, you know, they all rush out to greet the boat. You know, I have to say, was incredibly well done. I mean, the number of extras, period, correct clothing, an impressive array of extras of all kinds. Some of them very pleasing to the eye.
I think anyone who's watched The Bounty, any male who's watched The Bounty, always is impressed with the extras.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we all like seeing lots of sweaty men on boats, of course. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot about the film to like. I just feel like the turning Christian into a weaker version with some madness issues, as opposed to someone who had a direct moral conflict with Bly, be that inaccurate or not. I like my history to be accurate, but I like my drama to be dramatic, and I'm prepared to make some sacrifices. There's loads about Braveheart that's bollocks, but it's an absolutely wonderful film to watch. I'll watch it at least once a year because it's got a great score.
It's dramatically satisfying.
Yeah, dramatically satisfying. I haven't got any of the Bounty films on my yearly list to watch, but I'm really glad that I did watch the Richard Harris one and Trevor Howard one again, because I forgot how damn good the performances were.
Yeah. I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to get that. I'm going to have to just put that on the list to buy the original Mutiny on the Bounty, because it's a great story, and I'm keen to see another interpretation of it. Because
you want to check to see if the Blu-ray is available for that, because you're pretty good at checking out that stuff.
Sure, it would be.
Wonder if it is available. I'm wondering where they did these. I guess these kind of in harbour shots, because the ship was built out in New Zealand, I believe.
It was, but it was fully sailable. It had a motor in it, and it and it went it went to wherever they needed it to be. But those were all shot in absolute. That ship was absolutely sailed.
So I'm guessing that the scenes that were filmed in Wembley Studios must have been all the interior cabin stuff. They probably shot probably shot all the interior cabin stuff before they went out. So they got all that stuff and probably shot some extra stuff for safety. And then they went out, and then they could take their time shooting all the stuff at sea and leisurely mountains and, you know, jumping into the water. And because that greeting scene, that must have taken, you know, you wouldn't have, back in the day of heavy film cameras, what they maybe had 3-4 cameras, maybe. That would be a lot for a feature film of that size. I would think a 4-camera unit. That probably took about a week to film that scene alone, I would think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll have to interrogate Phil over that.
It looks like the film is available in the US, Mutiny on the Bounty. It is available, as is the really old one. You can get a German region B of Mutiny on the Bounty.
I've so got to get a multi-regional Blu-ray player, because I've only got.
There is a HMV range of the Blu-ray so there is an English version of the film.
Let's have a look.
It's a premium collector's edition with a DVD, a Blu-ray, and a digital download. And but it's not actually too bad a price. But for me it would cost about $50 just to get it posted.
Okay, Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962, 2-disc Region 2 special edition, but that's DVD.
Yeah, this one's a Blu-ray.
Oh, hey, hang on, Mutiny on the Bounty, 62. Blu-ray import.
So yeah, there are several versions of it. I'm gonna have to get it. Hell, maybe when I'm over in England, I'll put it on my list as one to buy when we go.
I'll take you down. I'll take you down to your favorite shop, and we'll certainly have a look.
Yeah.
The only version that I can see of it at the minute is a US import that I can get. There's one available. Let me just let's get into this on the market screen here. This one here, this is available for £15.
Yeah, that's the most common version, which is the US import.
Where's this version with all the extra bells and whistles?
Doesn't seem to be here.
Look how much the 36 version is. £25. Look at that. There's only 2 left in stock.
Yep.
I think you need to see this version as well, by the way, Matt. You definitely do. You know, and don't forget the style of acting in the 30s is very different.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's probably why I probably always favor the 80s version, because it does have a more sense of reality. Whereas I know even from the trailers of the Mutiny and the Bounty, I can tell it's still got very much that 1960s Ben-Hur style of acting, you know.
Oh yeah, no, I mean there's a lot of grandstanding in it for sure.
Which is fine. I love old movies and I accept them for what they are, but yeah. I think I like my characters a bit grayer than what old movies portray.
Is this the collector's one with the red box?
No, that's that old HDV format. That format died. That lost the battle between the Blu-ray and the.
Oh, did it? Okay. Oh, forget that.
Yes. No, the one that I have, I'm not seeing the version that I saw.
I'll just look on the second page.
I think it's now a deleted item.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that are, man. I just Robert what's his name? Robert Meyer Burnett, who's got a great channel. He just did an unboxing of all his various special editions, and there was some cracking stuff on there.
I think that's really what is going to happen to. I was talking to a movie distributor recently, and they were talking about the life of what's going to happen with DVDs and Blu-rays and movies like that. It is of my opinion and also theirs as well that I think movies and DVDs and Blu-rays for the masses, where you go into Kmart and everyone buys, that's going to go, and the market's going to skew towards boutique releases.
Yeah, boutique and collectible. It's going to become kind of it's a collector's market already, really.
Yes, and it's going to go further down there, and it's all about now limited, high quality editions that are, you know, high price, and come with all of these extra features, and they're all very well packaged, and we're already seeing that now, and to me that's actually really exciting. I think that's great.
I mean, it is and it isn't. It's you're paying, you know, maybe 30, 40 notes for a film you've already got 3 different versions of, but you're getting a little booklet and some other bits and pieces, and there might be a new making of, there might be a new voiceover.
But it's better than the whole market disappearing. If someone said if someone had said you could have the whole thing disappear, or you can have boutique expensive, I'd go, well, I'll take the boutique.
No, because I'm a big believer in physical media.
Oh, absolutely. Like just last night, Nadia and I were like, you know what? We haven't seen that movie Splash since we were kids. Let's watch Splash. Oh,
isn't John Candy great in that film?
Well, I can't tell you because I didn't watch it last night because we would go to I've signed up for 3 streaming services. I've cancelled 3 recently. It was on none of them.
Oh, I thought you were about to say, and we reached for my Blu-ray.
Well, I don't have it on Blu-ray yet, but now I wish I did, because when I wanted to watch it, I couldn't unless I had subscribed to another streaming service. It's
That
just
was
bollocks.
that was Ron Howard's directing debut, which he followed up with Cocoon.
Right.
Splash, I believe, was 82. Cocoon was 84. We need to do a retro review of Cocoon, Matt, because that is one of my favorite films of all
Man.
time.
I have not seen Cocoon since it first came out on VHS.
Perfect. And it's got one of James Horner's best scores ever when he was still pretty young and coming up with good stuff. And I can't watch that film without crying. I can't.
All right, I have to get. I've been meaning to buy Cocoon. In fact, I was going to buy Cocoon when I came to England, because
we'll get
it's
you
not
Cocoon.
available in Australia. It's never been available in Australia on Blu-ray.
Shit, that's not good.
No, we miss out on so many films here. So I was going to buy Cocoon when I came to England, because I planned to bring like a spare suitcase. And then when I come back, I'm going to have I'll be going through customs with a suitcase full of Blu-rays.
That's crazy, man.
All of the movies in England that you can't get in Australia, I'm going to buy.
Before we wrap it up, I wanna just and you know just do a plug for whatever you're watching. There's a couple of actors that are in this who are maybe not as big as some of the others. I just want to give them a shout out. One of the actors in it I absolutely love. I love him in anything he's in. Is Richard Graham.
Now, I was watching him in The Bounty, and I was going, I know this guy. I've seen him so many times before, but I couldn't place him.
One of the things that I mean, he's one of the quartermasters in Titanic.
Of course.
I met the guy who made the actor who plays Lightoller looks a bit like him, and I met the actor who plays Lightoller. I think it's gone. Kevin, was it Kevin? I met him at a theatre premiere the other day, and I'd looked up his history because I wanted to get him on the channel because it was the anniversary of Titanic, and I thought who from the film could I get on the channel that might be up for it, and I found him on Facebook and I wrote to him, no reply, and I thought, oh well, never mind. And then I was standing at this theatre press night, and there he was standing across but I couldn't remember his name, and I went up to him and I said, I'm sure I know you. I think we've met. And he was just like, no. And the funny thing was, I had met his friend, but not him. And then it came to me, and I had to go back up to him and said, I'm ever so sorry. I know exactly who you are, and you've got a message from me on Facebook. But Richard Graham, I've never met. He first came to my attention in a BBC drama called An Ungentlemanly Act about the invasion of the Falkland Islands, not available on Blu-ray, sadly. Very good film, there it is. Plays Corporal Armour. That's the first thing I saw him in. I mean, he's been acting for a long time. He's kind of a jobbing, I guess, character actor.
You always see him around.
Yeah.
And that's right. Lock, Stock. Was he in the Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels movie?
No, he's in one episode of the short-lived TV series. He had
Gangs of New York. That's where I saw him.
Bit part in Gangs of New York.
It was his role in Titanic. I couldn't place him, but he is the guy that finds Leo pulling Kate Winslet out the back of the ship, and he's the one who calls the Master at Arms.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's like, "Don't you move an inch." Yeah.
And the guy who plays the Master at Arms has been on my channel.
Oh, nice.
And we've got an interview with him. Brain seizing up. It's late. His name's gone. He's on my channel. He was in was it Tin Cup or anyway? Lovely guy. He's in Lock, Stock and plays Nick the Greek.
Is that Nick the Greek?
Yeah, that's Nick
the quartermaster. Is the Master at Arms
Quartermaster's Nick the Greek? He is. Yeah.
Oh, I would never ever have spotted him.
Well, I want to give Richard Graham a shout. He's a great actor. He's underused. I would love to work with him. I highly recommend you work with him, Matt, if you ever get the chance. I think Philip Martin Brown is a very good actor who's plays the survivor. He's not in the film that much.
No, he's a bit of a background character. Yeah.
And funnily enough, here he is with Neil Morrissey in something else in Waterloo Road, and they were both also in The Bounty because Morrissey plays the guy who squares off with Liam Neeson.
Right.
That was another thing that I kind of was annoyed, and I remembered it differently, and maybe it's because it's one of the other versions, but Neeson and the other people who decide to stay behind on Tahiti, that group gets arrested and taken back to England. And there's a great story about that, where the ship that takes them back flounders on a reef. 3 of them drown. Some of the rest escape. They still manage to then get taken back to England. And then after all of that, 4 of them get acquitted. 3 of them have small prison sentences and 3 of them are hanged. Imagine going all that way back and all through that, and I need to then get
oh my God.
And, well, this is a really nice comment from Vin, who's watching it. Mate, please spread the word, because Matt and I really do love films, and we're not cocky about it at all. Look, you two know an awful lot about movies, but you're not the least bit arrogant or cocky about it. Refreshing change and really cool. Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm going to have to do the same thing, I'm afraid, Lance. I'll duck off to the toilet. I'll be right back.
Okay, we're going to wrap up shortly, mate. Anyway, but just you go, and I'll talk about the other actors. So Neil Morrissey, who's also in it, who plays Quintor, I just talked about him. He's had a pretty successful career as a comedian, and he's into that kind of stuff. TNZ, thanks for popping in, man. Great to see you. So he's also in there. I mean, this is a veritable kind of who's who of the male actors of that time. Simon Chandler has done a fair bit. Another good, solid actor who I believe I met at a friend's birthday party when he had longer hair. That would have been in the early 2000s, probably. I think. Simon,
hey, buddy, I'm back.
So Simon Chandler, I met at a friend's birthday party who was also in the film.
Oh yeah, cool.
He plays one of the officers. Not a big part. Not in terms of dialogue, anyway. And I dare say everybody's part was probably bigger before the cutting room floor.
But it's great to see this is the place where so many careers were forged and were part of their thing. I am going to have to jump. I'm afraid my next into my meeting from the US with some people, they have bumped it forward by half an hour, and I have to run. So I have to say goodbye.
Okay, mate. No, that's all right.
My day job has now caught up with me, and I must evacuate. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Some great comments, and yeah, we'll talk more movies.
All right, Matt, you run off, and I'll wrap it up. Because I just got a couple of other things I want to say.
No worries.
But if you've got to run, that's absolutely fine. Thanks for coming on, mate. Let's try and do this once a week if we can.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
All right, and it doesn't always have to be on a Wednesday, because that's when I do the wrap up. So I could do Thursday after Drinkers stream, because I'm moderating on that, and then I can, that normally finishes around midnight. So I could jump on after that. I can do Fridays, which would be your Saturday morning.
Yeah. Well, so I'm pretty free during the week and weekend, so I'm sure we can always line it up.
Well, let's try and do Cocoon next week, man.
All right. Well, look, let me find a way to watch it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Or we can pick something else, and we could even do Cocoon when you're here. We've got to do a couple of these when you're here.
Oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to do. We'll cram in loads when you're over here.
It's going to be a busy week
because Matt's coming to the UK soon. All right, man. I'm going to let you jump out, and
all right.
I'll see you real soon.
Ciao for now.
All right, so it's Matty Holmes, all the way from Australia, guys. Came on with me, especially to talk about The Bounty. It's one of his favourite films. It's not my favourite of these movies. I prefer the 63 version, but I'm a big fan of Trevor Howard, Richard Harris, and Marlon Brando, of course. Now, just before I wrap up, I'm just going to tell you guys, we are in rehearsals for a play. We've got a stream about it on Friday. It's about the biggest miscarriage of justice in British history. We have done this play before. It's called False Accounts. It's about the Horizon Post Office scandal. You want to know more about it, you can Google it. But when you've got no budget for a play and you have to rehearse with actors in your house, this is what it looks like.
Really?
People should come and see this play because it tells a story that needs to be heard.
No one's been brought to justice for it, and the people are still suffering to this day.
And I'd say it's important, a little bit terrifying, and also a little bit silly.
Join us at the Oso Theatre in Barnes from the 31st of May to the 4th of June.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's what it looks like when you have to rehearse with cast in your kitchen. But that's what the Outcasts are working on at the minute. So I run the channel and sort of channel all our work through here. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of the Outcasts there working very hard. So I just want to give a big shout out to, in no particular order, Victoria, Jeffrey, Ali, Zahid, Rosals, Bev, Ermintrude, Felicity Carpenter, Marta Fossati, Miriam Babubaram. Then we've also got Dave Binder, Donna Coombe, Dickon Tolson, Catherine Sager, Francesca Farango Morago, and I think that's everyone. I bet I've missed somebody. And we've got Melissa Stanton coming to help us tomorrow with puppets, because we've got some puppets in the show. So there's quite a lot of things there going on. Yeah, and that would be a good thing to do, actually, Matt, doing a show about the world's fastest Indian. I haven't watched that in a really long time. That would be a good film for me to rewatch that I think I would appreciate more now, for sure. Lorraine Fab, thank you for really nice comments. I like to get guests on that have got really good working knowledge, and we generally like to talk about stuff we like. And I think, you know, we've because we both work in the industry and we're both directors, and we've both got feature films under our belt, we can come at these things from a slightly different viewpoint, which may be more beneficial in some ways and maybe less in others. So Matt apologizing for having to jump off early, but as you can see, he's keen to talk about The Little Mermaid next time. Matt, we'll get into those things next time. So guys, I'm about to sign off now as well. I've got a bit of work to do. Got a new book coming out called 1988. If you grew up in the 80s and you liked your 80s films, this is the first year that I spent in the States, and every film that I saw that year is reviewed in the book, as well as the very first UK screening of Die Hard, which I was at the London Film Festival, and I took a load of people to see it for my birthday. All of that is in the book as well, because it is my diary from the year of 1988. It does read like a season of Dawson's Creek. There is a lot of whinging about girls that I fancy and people that I tried to ask out on dates that fell horribly wrong. And you know, so the interesting thing about doing this book is I can't remember most of it, so it's been quite fun in some ways reading about the things that happened in my youth, because I didn't think I had this diary. I thought I lost it a long time ago. And in other ways it's been kind of like utterly embarrassing, but I'm publishing it nonetheless, so you'll be able to see it and read it for yourselves fairly soon. Guys that are tuning in now, thank you so much for watching. If you missed the beginning of the stream, go back and watch Matthew and I talk about Oppenheimer. We talk about Dune 2, the trailer, and then the meat of the stream is given to the 1984 film The Bounty, which we both watched recently. Matt's just bought the Blu-ray. 3 of my friends are in the film. One of them sent me a text tonight, which I read out during the stream. If you go back, you'll be able to hear that about his own experiences on the movie. There's also an interview with Phil Davis, who was in The Bounty. It's also elsewhere on the channel, industry interview number 19 or something like that. There's 27 of them on now. Sorry that we couldn't bring you the interview with Nick McLean, the DOP from the Goonies. We tried. It was brought forward by one day due to his scheduling conflicts. And then when we tried to do it, the technicals all fell apart. He's got a very old computer, doesn't support StreamYard. We tried to do it via Zoom, but the signal was too weak. He sounded like a Dalek. So in the end, rather than kind of do a live stream where you guys were not going to get a good quality production in terms of sound and everything with the interview, I just decided we had to cancel that and reschedule. We do have the first assistant director, David McGiffert, coming on the, I think it's the 11th of June. I think he's coming, and he is the first assistant director from all 3 Back to the Future films, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and a ton of other movies. So do tune in for that. Tune in this Friday when I've got some of the cast from False Accounts coming on to talk about the play with some postmasters who were victims of the scandal and loads of other stuff like that. And I'll be back again next Wednesday. In the meantime, don't forget to contact people that you care about and just ring them up and tell them that you love them, and they will appreciate it. I will see you again real soon.